Hello, hello, hello. I gotta fix this. Hello, hello, hello. This is Dmitry Ivanovich, aka Jeff Soberoff, with the Not So Naked Truth today, because it's cold outside. And really, when I appear in front of you guys without my shirt on, I'm really not naked. I do wear pants. Anyway, I'm presenting this video to my friends because of something that happened during the court hearing, which I was able actually to record because apparently they don't want me in a courtroom and they don't want me to bring my evidence. And the reason for that is in 2007, after having had the person that I care about most in this world having a hate crime committed against her. The people of Calamus, Iowa, decided to start filing various false charges against me. Now, one of the first of these charges was actually filed by the police when a drug dealer who has considerable notoriety on my website decided to call my home in another county and threaten my life 6 times in a 30-second statement, and you can see that on my YouTube channel. The upshot of that was I called the local police, and I also called the police in the community they live in the next county, Scott County. Well, the pigs in Scott County told me that since I received the call there, that it was the police department's duty in the jurisdiction where I live to follow through with this. When I called the Clinton County Police, who are extremely racist and totally fucked up, they told me the same thing, that I'd have to report it to the police in Davenport, Iowa. Ever since I gave a person who has been terribly abused all of her life at the hands of the federal government, and to get the details on that, once again, go to www.freeworldkgb.freeservice.com. Everything on that site is true. Everything. I faced powder and shot to get that information firsthand. And even though I had people working video cameras and bringing me evidence, I felt that to be responsible for everything that I was publishing, I really needed to go and check these things out myself. And I was shot at over 24 times, and on 17 of those occasions, I was charged with harassing the police for merely telling them that people were shooting at me. And that's because the Rock Island and Davenport police are totally involved in the sale and trade of cocaine, methamphetamine, and all manner of illegal substances, which traverse the space in between Iowa and Illinois, which is like a mile across the river. And when this kind of shit happens, the Justice Department's involved. As a matter of fact, the Justice Department has been involved with the Butler family for longer than I've known the Butler family. They know all about this. They allow it to go on. The Justice Department allowed Ruth Butler to obtain a child through human traffic, make claims of being a mother when she is not, on a federal document and never prosecuted her for doing that for over 40 years. And you know, to make a false statement on a federal document is not allowed. It's worth 5 years in prison. But Ruth Butler was running a drug cartel. And she eventually received over $100,000 from the government, which she never gave to the payee. I mean, this case dragged on for almost 30 years. And the Justice Department at one time wrote to the Social Security Administration saying that you have to find another payee for this child because Ruth Butler is just not acceptable. The Social Security Administration wrote a letter to her stating that if she would prove the possibility of maternity by taking a type-matching blood test, DNA was not available in those days, they would make her the payee and give her between $8,000 and $12,000 at the time for because that was the money that was in the escrow account that Social Security was holding ever since Ruth Butler obtained this child through human trafficking and tried to palm this child off as a disabled person on the federal government, which they were able to do without the benefit of any clinical testing. Period. And the full story of that is also on my website. Now, the reason I'm publishing this is because of this incident that I was able to record on my laptop. You'll just see me talking to the screen, but you will be able to hear Judge Latham. And what's interesting about Judge Latham is he believes that exculpatory evidence is to be suppressed. It's illegal to suppress exculpatory evidence. It's illegal for a judge to do it. It's illegal for the prosecutor to do it. But what's amazing is that in all of this time that I've had these problems in the city of Calamus, actually it's a hamlet, and you know, if you're a Jew, you should never move to a hamlet because it's just not kosher. Yeah. So anyway, Judge Latham is listening to my attorney argue against a favorable judgment that I received from Nancy Tabor, who, by the way, is one of the judges who put Wanda back into a crack house against her own will and refused to accept Wanda's word that I never referred to anybody as a nigger, because that was the basis of social services wanting to put her back into a crack house, because I was supposed to have referred to the drug dealers who have her captive as niggers. Now, nigger isn't a word that I use. It's not. As a matter of fact, my friends on Facebook now, that I have unfriended myself from a person, Paris Thompson. I'm supposed to be Paris Thompson's father. Talk about exculpatory evidence. Which I'm not. And the only reason I know that I'm not is because on the point of my first incarceration, at that point in time, Pat Thompson, who I had a relationship with for several years, had claimed that I was the father of her child. And I was willing to accept that without any testing, you know, because I cared about Pat, even though she's a rabid alcoholic, and etc. I cared about her, but her alcoholism really made it very difficult for us to be together. So anyway, Pat tells me one day she's pregnant, calls me up, and that she's going to be delivering, and she's yada yada yada. And on my way into the hospital, I see an old friend of mine who I used to encounter in local bistros, and we were drinking buddies, and his name was Goody. Pat had admitted to me 9 months before that she and Goody had had sexual intercourse in the back seat of Goody's car. She admitted this to me while she was drunk. She came home drunk. I used to play a game with Pat. She'd come home and pass out like a beached whale drunk. And I would just sit there, and I would go, like that. And it would wake her up, and she would have to go and puke. I thought that was tremendously funny. Anyway, she decides that she wants a paternity test. So I said, sure, I'll take a paternity test. I wrote back the Children and Family Services office that had contacted me, and I said, I think we should do this paternity test on the Maury Show, on the Who's the Baby's Daddy program. Really, that's what I wanted to do. But I consented to take a paternity test. And after I had a Pat Thompson, who would not offer her DNA up or Paris's DNA up, decided to call the whole thing off. I don't know what kind of shit that is, but that's the kind of shit that I generally get from people. I won a sizable lawsuit in 1986 or 87. And at that time, women started crawling out of the woodwork who I didn't remember, because the newspaper decided to publish the fact that I was a rich guy at this time. And I'm getting contacts from people who got my freaking contact information from the fucking newspaper, and they get a hold of me, and they tell me that I have a child who's either a teenager or an adult now. They just wanted money. And I said, well, I'm a rich guy. Where do you want to get your blood drawn? And that would stop it. That would stop it. You know, it's unusual for a person to wait for like years to tell you you're somebody's child. And it's cruel. You know, I always wanted to be a father. And apparently, because of the women that I have known, I never became one, because God wanted to bless those unborn souls with not having that mother. But let's get back to the original premise for this video. I'm sitting in a courtroom hearing where my attorney is arguing that Nancy Tabor's ruling really shouldn't apply to me, and I shouldn't have exculpatory evidence available to me. You know, John Wolfe, or Jack Wolfe as people call him too, he spells his last name W-O-L-F-E. The prosecutor spells his name W-O-L-F. But they both, for the past decade, have reacted in this way when I demand to present exculpatory evidence to the court. Now, in the first felony trial that I had, based on a false report from a chronic alcoholic from Calamus who works at the Redneck Bar down the street, Stebbins Tap, I had threatened it during a telephone conversation to shoot her when she made the night deposit from the bar. The bank was located it abutted my building. So she made that claim. Without any further ado or investigation, I'm immediately arrested. As soon as I appear on the street, in Clinton, in the city of Clinton. I had some business to do in Clinton that day, and I also wanted to play pool, so I got on a bus and I went to Clinton because the bus went that day. And I'm picked up by the pigs and I'm held. Now it just so happens that I had the digital recorder, that I had that conversation, there were actually two conversations. After she had told me she was going to post my picture on a website, I informed Wanda Elias that the reason I moved to Calamus was because I had been the target of 25 previous shootings, assassination attempts. That started to happen when Crime Stoppers gave an hour-and-a-half compilation of drugs coming out of the First Ward Alderman's brother's barbershop to Crime Stoppers. I wasn't releasing crap on the net at that time about things I just found out. I wanted to give the police a chance to actually do something. But it never seemed that no matter how long I waited, that they wouldn't deal with people, especially people who are connected to the Butler drug ring. Well, the same thing happened with the barbershop 8 blocks away from my house. I'm paying people to surround the place. We made a compilation videotape and gave it to Crime Stoppers in Moline, the next city over to the east from Rock Island. And Mr. Williams gave that to the people who were on the tape selling dope. And people started to shoot at me. And that resulted in 17 harassment charges because these people were shooting at me. And I just reported they were shooting at me. So, here comes Mr. Latham, and here comes this hearing. This hearing concerns a post-conviction relief application, which I had filed 7 years previously from the first prison I was in. A prison, by the way, which I was released from by the Iowa Supreme Court because it's not against the law to make a joke on the web. Particularly if that joke does not involve hate speech, and it didn't. And what the court said, basically, and I'm going to translate this into language everyone can understand, it's not against the law to make fun of rednecks, peckerwoods, crackers, and shit kickers. That's what that ruling said. I was charged with extortion, a crime I didn't commit. According to Iowa statutes, I didn't commit it. According to Iowa statutes. But that's beside the point. Now, we've got a guy who's a county attorney who destroyed 3 post-conviction relief applications. And that's against the fucking rules. And it deserves a stiff sanction. But nothing's going to happen to this guy because this is a racist jurisdiction. The entire 7th Judicial of Iowa is tremendously racist. They sent Wanda back into a crack house because she's black and maybe she should live in a crack house. So this is what my attorney's arguing, because Judge Tabor made a fair decision in this case. She said, well, you want the material, you're free to look through it. So she ordered the 7th Judicial Court system to give me everything that they had on me from the years 2004 to 2008. 4 years of everything, which they refused to do because it's exculpatory. Judge Latham, this, as my attorney, is arguing that I shouldn't get exculpatory evidence, that I shouldn't be entitled to look at the actual record all in one piece. My attorney's arguing this. And Judge Latham is going to agree with him, in spite of the fact that the previous judge has said, it's not fair, this guy gets the material. And so I lost control, and I said, well, listen, if you are willing to do something which is illegal, which is I'm thinking this, if you are willing to do something that's illegal, and you want to contramand a court order which would make these hearings fair, then you can blow me. And while I was thinking this, I just popped out of me, dude, blow me. This isn't illegal. Now I'm going to publish that hearing shortly, but I never labeled it, so it's just got a WIN number on it, and I've got literally hundreds of videos on my laptop, which I have made with subjects in this manner, such as the video I presented, where I'm telling the second in command of the Clinton County Police that if he wants to talk to my witness, I'm going to be present during the conversation, because he's not going to bullshit and bully my witness. And by the way, my witness, Mr. Cole, who was acting as a contractor for me, when the policeman encountered him and made a false report, this was what the complaint was about. They don't want to make a complaint unless they can tamper with my witness. And I told the judge to blow me. Now, as far as I know, I haven't been charged with a crime, because actually I'm supposed to be insane. That's why they don't want me in court. I'm not insane, but I do fucking get... This has been going on for a decade. I moved into a racist community because I played in a bar a few times where everybody was friendly. They could see my skin was a tad darker than theirs. They didn't call me the N-word. They were friendly. They listened to the tunes I played. Everybody was cool. I later found out after I moved to Calamus that those people didn't come from Calamus, but they're from this red area which is mostly rednecky. And they came to Susie's Bar, which is Sweet Flags. That's my email address, is Sweet Flags. They would come to this bar because they weren't rednecks, and they didn't, and racist speech was not something that I heard in that bar. If I would have heard racist speech in that bar, I would have only played there once, and that would have been the end. That would have been the end. But these people were friendly, and but they didn't come from Calamus. The people in Calamus, with very few exceptions, are down and out Nazis. They are racist, bigoted, religiously intolerant, and they are violent people. So anyway, I am preparing my audience for this effusion which is going to be coming, which is a hearing that I had. I have since been given another attorney, and he didn't want to dismiss Mr. Wolf. Now, there's an interesting detail about Mr. Wolf's representation of me. When I first became acquainted with Mr. Wolf, it was when Wanda Elias had made this first report. So I said, well, I'm going to make it easy on this guy. I got evidence. I got the recording. So I take the recording to his freaking office. And he starts giving me shit. This is exculpatory evidence. It goes directly to the point. This guy wants to get paid. This guy wants to get, and it's a tiny amount of money. Defense attorneys will not defend you if they're court appointed. They will go for a plea. They will force you to take a plea. Which, by the way, when you take a plea and you're not guilty, you're committing perjury. I've refused to take pleas, and the court has entered a plea on my behalf. And it wasn't on my behalf. I'm not guilty of shit. Well, maybe sometimes I shit, but that's not a crime that you're guilty of. It's just a biological function that you have to do. So shit. Anyway, I go to Mr. Wolf's office, armed with this recording, and he says, "Oh, not so fast there, Baba Louie. We'll see if it comes up." It already has come up. It's in the goddamn charge. So you know what I did? I went to started to do the basic shit that I had to do to divest myself of the guy by telling him, "No, you're not going to be my attorney under these circumstances. This is the way." I've never lost in court. I'd been in court before I met Mr. Wolf. I personally diffused 3 attempts to commit me by the state of Illinois. And those attempts started to commit me for practically life. After I started my website, freeworldkgb.freeservers.com, and the whole story is pretty much there. And I would also like to add that even though a state judge and a federal judge, one of those judges was Nancy Tabor, and another federal judge had told the Justice Department and the marshals and whoever else to stay the hell out of my website and not tamper with it, they still did anyway. They still did that anyway while I was locked up. It took me over a year to put my website back together in the condition that it's in. The material they took off my website, I happen to have on disk. And as soon as I can find a place where I can just drop over the edge of the world and don't have to worry about these sons of bitches, I'm going to put that back up. Because a lot of that material directly names the people who watched a child get raped, locked her out of social services offices, and only continued to deal with her primary sexual abusers. And that's the story of Wanda Butler's life. And that's what got me so pissed off in the first place. And now I'm dealing with a situation where the judge and the judicial system is allowing Mike Wolf to destroy a post-conviction relief effort without filing it with the proper department and getting a judgment from them on whether my relief application has merit. So 3 of these post-conviction relief applications were destroyed. They were mailed to the Clinton County Court. 2 were mailed from a prison in Iowa. 1 was carried, and 1 didn't make it across the parking lot from the Clinton County Jail. This is after I'm released from prison. They needed to lock me up again for a few more months just to teach me a lesson. Even though the court had released me, they wanted to teach me a fucking lesson. No reason for it. So I'm sitting in jail, and I find out that 2 post-convictions have disappeared without any word from the proper department about whether my post-conviction relief has merit or it doesn't. Then they decided to charge me with arson. I didn't do that. My best information from a person who lives in Calamus is that she saw Valeska and Emma Steffens enter my building and leave it shortly before it exploded. But in any case, that being as it is. Oh, and after I was charged, after they to do their investigation, they did not seal up a crime scene. And by the time I'm told about all of this, I'm also told, well, there have been too many people through the crime scene and we can't get evidence from it. They're supposed to seal up a crime scene. We all watch CSI. We all watch these police and legal programs. They're supposed to seal up a crime scene. But if you're a Jew and the 7th Judicial District wants to railroad you, they won't seal off that crime scene. Why would they want to? I mean, first of all, you're a Jew and you brought a black woman into our community? How fucking dare you? So, that's where that stood. The police contaminated that. The police contaminated it so I couldn't use it for evidence. But there's plenty of exculpatory evidence in these 4 years of persecution that I received at the hands of Christians, rednecks, Nazis, in fact. So anyway, you'll be seeing that video shortly. The denying a defendant the opportunity to present exculpatory evidence is against the fucking rules. It's a serious offense for anyone to foist that on a defendant. It's a serious offense. Exculpatory evidence is a mandatory right of a defendant. But you're going to hear Judge Latham pronounce, well, it's not necessarily so. And it's not necessarily so if you're a Jew, if you're a black, if you're Hispanic, if you're anybody that doesn't fit the norm that Donald Trump wants in this country. This is a very dangerous thing that's happening in this country with Donald Trump. And you know, the fact of the matter is I'm watching these Trump rallies. I'm watching them on YouTube. Sometimes I saw them on television. Where people are chanting, kill Hillary. They want to kill her. Really, kill her. Not kill her campaign. Not kill her attempt to become president. Kill her personally. I saw video of a black guy, a Republican, at a Trump rally, who people saw only his skin color. Not that he was for Trump. And they beat him up. This is what you got in your country now. This is what you've got. One of the reasons. Now, I won't go into that now. I'm going to have to prepare notes on what I just thought. But the exclusion of exculpatory evidence is a serious form of malfeasance. It's even a crime. It's a denial of your civil right. It's a denial of your right to present a defense, which I just heard today is something that the judge in the Lakota case, where a company that Mr. Trump is invested in wants to put a pipeline through land which, according to a treaty, it belongs to Native Americans. It's all of theirs. 500 of them have been arrested for trespassing on their own land. And right now the judge is depriving them the right to present their exculpatory evidence. They're even denying these people the right to tell a jury, we've got a treaty. We have a treaty which was written and worded so that this is now and forever. This is our reservation. This is our land. This is where we are. This is our home. And these people were trespassed from their home. And there's a judge who doesn't want the jury to recognize that during trial. This is a national scandal. This is all racism. This is all racism. That's what it is. Look at the pipeline coming down from Canada. It doesn't go in a straight line. Why don't they put it in a straight line? Just in a damn straight line. You know why? Because white people don't want that oil pipeline underneath their ground, because those things break. You know, I used to think that, I digress, I know, but there's so many things. You know, I used to think that oil prevented rust. Apparently, pipelines corrode because crude oil is a corrosive substance in itself. And these people haven't done anything with the technology of pipelines to prevent that from happening. And white people don't want it. We don't want it going through our state. We don't want it going through here. So they find a place where they can despoil Native American lands. And speaking of despoiling, who despoiled the election? Was it the Democrats? By gerrymandering through states to exclude pro-Sanders constituents, while attempting to increase Hillary's dominance in the primaries. And they do this gerrymandering. It ought to be prohibited. You live where you live. You should be able to get to vote where you vote. You should be, you know, I mean, to have a district run through multiple counties. That's what it's for. Hillary shot her own self in the dick. The Democratic Party shot its own self in the dick. But America as a whole, has totally shown itself to the world to be a racist country by electing a guy like Trump, who, according to pictures that I've seen on YouTube and news reports that I have read in national media, his father and his grandfather are card-carrying members of the goddamn Ku Klux Klan. When we can elect somebody like this into public office, don't tell me how America is a free country. Don't tell me how America is not racist. Don't tell me how America is not anything but exactly the same as every other shit bunghole in the world that discriminates against people of color, people of a different ethnic background, people of a different economic class. This is Dmitry Ivanovich, a.k.a. Jeff Soboroff, with the Naked Truth.